administration, we heard that young people were leaving the Democratic Party. They were getting disinterested in politics. And we built a campaign where we said, what if we treated them with respect and not condescension?
New York City mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani was on The View, and it was quite an appearance. So I have a few clips to share here because I got some things to say, in particular about some of these questions, because, oh my goodness, it's just some ridiculous stuff. Let me start with the first clip. This is Sarah Haynes, and I'm going to jump in pretty quick here.
You're running for mayor of New York and not prime minister of Israel, but you've made inflammatory statements like calling Israel an apartheid state.
All right, I'm going to get to the rest of that clip, but I have to jump in here quickly because of how ridiculous this is. Inflammatory statements like calling Israel an apartheid state, stating literal facts bared out by international rulings is somehow an inflammatory statement. Yes, Sarah Haynes knows all about apartheid, but South Africa has no idea, doesn't know what apartheid is. In case you don't know, the entire word apartheid is born out of South Africa. They're the ones that brought this case to the ICJ. You have a human rights expert calling it apartheid, an Israel-based human rights organization calling it apartheid, not to mention countless other human rights organizations that are not going to be listed here, but talking Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International. Go down the list. Every single internationally recognized human rights organization has already recognized this as apartheid. The ICJ ruling, World Court finds Israel responsible for apartheid from the International Court of Justice. Like, no, these people don't know anything. The actual experts in the field, the actual legitimate international rulings, they don't know what to talk about. But Sarah Haynes on The View, she knows all about apartheid. How ridiculous. This is the kind of garbage this man has to deal with when talking to people like this. And he's not allowed to just like call out how stupid these people are. He has to sit there, take their garbage and answer nicely as he does here. But God, someone needs to call out how stupid this trash is. Anyways, here is the rest of the clip.
Given New York has the largest Jewish population outside of Israel, why should voters who see this as a moral red line trust your clarity and judgment?
Well, I really appreciate this question and an opportunity to just clear up, I think, a number of misconceptions. First and foremost, you're right. I am running to be the mayor of the city, and this city will be the focus of my administration, ensuring that we make this a city everyone can afford and everyone knows that they belong to. And also, millions of New Yorkers, myself included, care deeply about what's happening in Israel and Palestine. And so to be very, very clear, of course I condemn Hamas. Of course I've called October 7th what it was, which is a horrific war crime. And of course, my belief in a universality in international law is also the same set of beliefs that have led me to describe what's happening in Gaza as a genocide. Because what we see is a war crime being answered with war crimes. And what we see is every single hour the Israeli military killing a Palestinian child for close to 2 years. And it's a horror that many New Yorkers feel so deeply. And my job, I can't stop that as the mayor of the city. I can make clear my own values, my own commitments. And it is a value and a commitment to humanity, to safety, to justice for all people that extends to everyone, Israelis, Palestinians, and everyone else across the world.
And recognizing that people do disagree with you.
Absolutely.
I am one of those people on some of these points.
Absolutely. So. And that you're disagreeing with me doesn't mean that you shouldn't be in this city or you shouldn't be celebrated and part of the city that I'm trying to lead.
Yeah. Holocaust scholar that says Israel's committing a genocide. Don't you know that Sarah from The View disagrees with you? Israel-based human rights groups, don't you know that Sarah from The View doesn't think that there's a genocide? How about UN Commission? UN Commission, you don't know what you're talking about because Sarah Haynes and people like her do not believe there's a genocide. Don't you know, International Association of Genocide Scholars, that you are wrong because Sarah from The View has a different opinion? How embarrassing. This is a voter. This is a Democratic voter. It's one thing. Trump voters, you could, as I do, chalk them up to a cult. They're brain dead. There's no saving a lot of those people. But even half of those people, half of Trump voters, or at least Republican voters, I'm sure most of them are Trump voters, half of those people understand what Israel is doing is wrong. Yet, Sarah Haynes is dumber than them. Next clip.
On day one, why aren't you going to big corporations like Amazon and Google and making sure that they pay what could really help the city raise up and get us where we need to do. Because I need to hear somebody say, because it's the thing nobody says. They say, oh, we're going to make people pay, but they're not clear. They came in, they said, we're going to make these jobs, people are going to have these, they're going to have work, but then they had to fight to unionize because they're not getting paid enough.
Absolutely.
So I don't understand why the focus, if the focus is for New Yorkers to be lifted, and New York State to be lifted and put in the right perspective, why the focus isn't on the companies that could be doing a lot more for the places have their places, but it doesn't happen.
Instead of the individual, or including the individual tax
corporate?
base? You mean corporations?
As I said, Amazon
Right.
and Google,
Right.
corporations, who don't seem to pay the same kinds of taxes everyone else pays.
Look, if you were running for mayor, I'd be voting for you. Because I think, Whoopi, to your point, the corporate greed that we're seeing in this country, it cannot be separated from the level of inequality that people are living through. And one of the key revenue proposals I've put forward, our agenda from the day we started was about freezing the rent for more than 2 million tenants, making the slowest buses in the country fast and free, delivering universal childcare. So no longer would a family pay $25,000 a year just to find childcare for one kid. And what we've said is that two of the main ways we pay for it, one of them would be to raise the top corporate tax rate. This is a corporate tax rate that applies to the most profitable companies that do business in the state, like the ones that you've named, to that of New Jersey. So it would just match that of our neighbor, 11.5% that they have over there. By matching our neighbor, we would raise $5 billion a year. And that would be money we could reinvest into working in middle-class New Yorkers' lives so that everyone could afford it.
So you don't think
you
that
have
would
any-
drive them out of the city then?
No, so the nature of our tax law is that applies to any business doing business here. They could be headquartered in Miami, but if they're doing business here, it applies to them. And the reason that I believe they'll keep doing business here is because this is one of the largest economies in the world. Everyone wants to be here.
Mamdani is a master. The way he's able to take that question, which I'm going to get to my issue with the question, even though, to be fair, Whoopi Goldberg is saying some good things there in the sort of normie kind of way you would expect from or would hope, I guess, from a multimillionaire. But the way he's able to take that question and rejig it into discussing what his platform is all about, free bus service, universal childcare, and freezing the rent, was just magnificent. Now, the issue, again, maybe I'm being overly critical here, but these are people that are on, this is national television, bringing on a politician where clearly Whoopi Goldberg had a question ready about corporate tax rates. All you had to do was search Zohran Mamdani and corporate tax. On his website, he has a whole section about this, how he will raise the corporate tax rate to match New Jersey's, bringing in $5 billion, like he discussed there. I mean, look, I appreciate the question from Goldberg because it allowed Mamdani to give that answer, but there's a way to ask a question about corporate tax rates by acknowledging that he has a plan to deal with it, as opposed to trying to claim that I never hear any politician talk about this. Bernie's entire platform was about this, and you hated him. So spare me, please. Anyways, last clip here.
You've become the new poster child in some ways for the GOP. Donald Trump's obviously excited for you to be in the race. Even members of your own party, like Leader Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, both New Yorkers, have been reluctant to endorse you.
What I've been really excited by is the endorsements, like you said, Sonny, from not only Governor Hochul, not only from Majority Leader of the State Senate Andrea Stewart-Cousins, Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie, Attorney General Tish James that we were just speaking about, but also the fact that I wouldn't be sitting here with you if it was endorsements that made all of the difference. It was the people of the city.
But Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are trying to win the midterms, win back the House and the Senate for Democrats. So why specifically do you think they're hesitant to endorse you?
I can't speak to their thoughts and their interest in this. What I can tell you, however, is that what we have built in this city is also an indication of what politics can be. Oftentimes after the November general election, we heard that young people were leaving the Democratic Party. They were getting disinterested in politics. And we built a campaign where we said, what if we treated them with respect and not condescension? What if we asked them what they needed in the city? We made the top 3 highest performing age groups all under the age of 35. That's something that we haven't seen in the city before. That needs to be at the heart of our politics across the country.
Yeah, okay, sure. But how about Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer? Why won't they endorse you? I'm sure she was just dying to ask that a third time, but they ran out of time. These are the kinds of ridiculous questions that Zohran Mamdani has to deal with. He did a good job at pivoting there. I'm going to get some more data on who supports him, because that is who supports Mamdani actually is newsworthy. But these clowns focus on Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer. Who's really waiting on the Hakeem Jeffries endorsement? Is that really a big endorsement that the voters are waiting for? Nobody cares. In fact, I kind of hope they don't endorse him, because it shows that he's someone who's actually going to challenge them. But this is the reality that Mamdani, being too nice, you could argue, didn't want to bring up. Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader's all-time top campaign donor, is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. That has to at least play a part. So, as in these times writes, a July, again, this is the newsworthy stuff that these hosts should be bringing up, or anyone who's interviewing him or discussing him should bring up, because this stuff is interesting considering how he's been framed. A July Zenith research poll shows Mamdani with a 17-point lead with New York Jewish voters. A second poll, also from July, by GQR Research, which was commissioned by an anti-Mamdani pro-Israel organization, New York Solidarity Network, found Mamdani leading with Jewish New Yorkers by 12 points. Even an anti-Mamdani group could not find numbers that would hurt him. Jeffrey Lerner, Mr. Mamdani's communications director and one of his many Jewish advisors, said in a statement that it was, quote, no surprise that thousands of Jewish New Yorkers proudly cast their ballots for Zohran in the June primary, despite relentless fear-mongering from Republicans and the billionaire class. So some more data on this. 85% of young men support Zohran Mamdani. 79% of young women support him. 67% of Jewish people aged 18 to 44. 65% of black people aged 18 to 44. These numbers are interesting because this is not the message that most people are hearing. This is the stuff that is newsworthy, is worth discussing, is worth bringing up when talking to him. As a recent poll also showed, Staten Island, Mamdani is tied with Cuomo. This is a conservative area. This is the most conservative part of New York, yet he's tied for first. This also newsworthy. Last thing here, poll after poll shows him leading by double digits. Again, this is not the thing that you would expect when hearing mainstream coverage of him or seeing these interviews. You'd think, oh my God, he's really going to have a big fight. And look, it is going to be still a fight in the race, considering how much money is behind Andrew Cuomo. But this is interesting stuff. These numbers are worth discussing. Anyways, let me know your thoughts on how The View handled those questions and Zohran's response to them.